Hi there, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Cece Nunez, and I'm one of the study abroad advisors with the Office of International Affairs. And I'm going to go ahead and just pass this over to our guest today so that we can dive into our session. So get away, honey.
Thank you. Before I start, I'm going to share my screen because there have been moments when I thought I had shared my screen and talked about things that were visible on the slides, and then it wasn't actually visible. Do you see it just like you can hear me okay? And do you see the slides?
I can hear you and I can see them. Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. So, welcome. Thank you for joining this info session about the opportunities that are available to you for the upcoming academic year. Um, my name is Hani Geist. I represent the German Academic Exchange Service here in the Western region of the United States. I've been in this role since 2013, and maybe just a little bit of information who's talking to you. I was born in Berlin. I studied in Berlin. I have a degree from a university in Berlin, but I also studied abroad as an exchange student at UT Austin, and then I was also an international student pursuing a master's at Arizona State University. So this is not just my job, this is a passion of mine because if it wasn't for those international opportunities, I wouldn't be here working in San Francisco in this role. And what I also understand, and that was really important to me, is the funding that was available to me because all the opportunities, first as an au pair, then an exchange student, then a master's student, was only possible because I got different kinds of funding. So that's what I'm going to talk to you today is a little bit about DAD, studying in Germany, interning in Germany, but then also very specifically the programs that we offer that are funded in different modes of funding, but different kind of funding opportunities. So let me go ahead and oh, so you will get the slides. So all of the links that are on here, I will share with CC, and then you can have a look at the slides. Of course, you get the recording, so you don't have to take notes. You can put questions in the chat as they come up. I'll take them to the very end. But then also, this is really just for you to get an overview, to know that I'm here. And probably for most of you, once you start applications, that's when you get the questions and that's when you have the questions. So please feel free to then get in touch with me afterwards. So with all of that, what is DAD? DAD is the German acronym Deutsche Akademische Austauschdienst, or in English, German Academic Exchange Service. Coming up on our 100th anniversary in 1925, there's a special connection with the United States and Germany. The first exchange was initiated an effort by actually students from Heidelberg University, the actually oldest university in Germany, also public university, with the university in New York. So the US and Germany have a very strong and very old connection. There are many things that DAD does. For you specifically, what's relevant is that we offer general information about the higher education system in Germany, maybe how you study on the master's, bachelor's, PhD level, how to do research, different structures in Germany. So my office, I advise on those general topics, but then, as I just said, funding, of course, is really important to do any kind of exchanges. So that's kind of the bread and butter for us is to talk about the scholarships and grants that we offer for all disciplines, all academic stages. I will also say that again, you might be an international student. Maybe you have friends that are international students. So DAD funding, if students fulfill the other requirements, unless it's specifically noted, is also available to international students. And I know for some of the funding that's available here in the United States, you have to have citizenship. So that's not the case for our country. My office, I'm here in San Francisco. I do outreach, I do advising, but our New York office is the regional office in New York, the DAD office in New York. And that's where a lot of the scholarships are processed. Our headquarters is in Bonn, and some of the grants that are actually going to talk to you today about are also administered in Bonn. So I'm not the one doing it, but it's a joint effort of the different offices. Why Germany? You're here. If I was a person, I would ask you why you are here and why Germany is interesting to you, or maybe you just saw a flyer. CC did a great job in promoting this and you just piqued your interest. But really, to summarize, Germany has high academic standards, living standards, research, education standards, but comparably at a reasonable cost. For one, I just mentioned public universities. There are a lot of public universities in Germany, and they don't charge tuition fees even for their international students. So even without additional funding, studying in Germany as an international student is also possible without having a lot of money and a lot of support. That's about 10-12%. So quite a few international students coming from around the world, like the United States, but also, of course, Europe. So the classrooms are very international, which means also you get the support from the international offices. There's an infrastructure to support international students. But then also specifically, and I need to update the specific slide, there are more and more international degree programs. What that means is that they're offered entirely in English, and those might be in, of course, like history, maybe business, but also, and I saw that in the registration information, a lot of the STEM fields as well. So if you are maybe looking at master's programs, maybe PhD programs, structured PhD programs, that is possible for you even without knowing any German. There's always a possibility to do so, but it's not a requirement. So that's kind of the general rundown of what DAD does. We have our website if you're really curious and want to learn more. It's really the most important for this presentation. Um, we do have, and by we, I mean DAD receive funding from the Federal Ministry of Education and Research very specifically to build another website and more resources for students, very targeted for students to study in Germany. So there is a database for degree programs, for example, on the website, but then also very practical information like where to find a place to stay, health insurance, visa. How am I able to work as an international student? Limited hours, but yes, you are able to work also as an international student on campus or off campus. So there are a lot of resources, and then the website also has an overview of some of the university towns, maybe some towns you're not familiar with, but information on the universities and how it is like to study as an international student. So this is also a great resource for just student stories, for example, peers that have had similar experiences. Um, we do, in addition, so I just said only two official DAD offices in the United States, but we do have also young ambassadors and research ambassadors, and the young ambassadors are students who either interned or studied or did research in Germany, all on the undergraduate level, not necessarily with DAD funding, any kind of funding. And we have a number of students, also STEM students, who did an internship, for example. I will get into that here in a little bit, but when you go on our dad.org website, you will find their individual profiles, information where they study in the United States or Canada, where they studied or interned in Germany, and a little bit about themselves. And more importantly, for you, also contact information. And they are all really excited about their experience and sharing their experience with you. So some of them did the RISE program, some did study abroad. So if you're interested in any of the programs that we offer, or if you just want to talk to someone who might have studied in the city that you're interested in, send them a message, set up a call. There's no one currently at UC Merced. No, we can change that. but they are available, and you should definitely contact them if you're interested. Um, and then an additional resource is the podcast that I created, Coffee Connections. That's really a wide range of interviews, different topics. They all have something to do with Germany, most of them. But then I did a few specifically also with the young ambassadors, and more importantly now also for this setting, since I saw a lot of you are from the STEM fields who might be interested in a research internship in science and engineering, which I'm going to talk to you about in a few slides. I did interviews where they talk about their internship, but then also what was the process of applying? What kind of advice do you have? And so, if you are planning on applying to funding, have a listen to those episodes and get some advice from those students. And of course, you can then later on also look them up on LinkedIn. So really, there are a lot of resources out there. It takes a little bit of homework, a little bit of digging in. But if you are interested, and that is part of how you apply successfully, is looking at all the resources that are online. And then if there is anyone that you can connect with, shoot them a message, ask them for like an informal interview, some a chat, or maybe just put a few questions in an email. And as I said, they're super excited to share their experience. Um, all right. Now, actually talking about funding opportunities. The first one, I said earlier, international students are eligible to apply for pretty much all of the programs. This is an example, but it's an important grant, and that's why I wanted to mention is our Gilman DAAD scholarship, where we work with the International Institute of Education and on their Gilman program that is available to students who are Pell Grant recipients, Pell Grant eligible, and that's for funding around the world. But then with our DAD Gilman funding, we are supporting additional students to either study or intern or research in Germany, starting 14 weeks, maybe even a faculty led. So if you are Pell Grant eligible, if you're not, talk to your financial advisor to inquire about that. But then if Germany is on your radar, and you maybe also are interested in a faculty led or a direct exchange, but there is no additional funding, look into the Gilman DAD. All the requirements for Gilman are the same for Gilman DAD. And now I talked about RISE a few times, so I want to get into a little bit more detail about that program because that's really for STEM students also who don't know necessarily any German and who want to do something over the summer. Okay, there are not a lot of programs out there. And so our RISE Research Internship in Science and Engineering Germany program is specifically designed for those students. So this is a summer research opportunity, 10 to 12 weeks. The earliest is mid-May, the latest is late June. So it really works with quarters and semester calendars. And oftentimes students can negotiate based on their grade, their end of the semester or quarter. And this, if you are a freshman, currently you're not eligible for next summer, but next year you will be eligible to go either between your second and third year or third or fourth year to the RISE Germany internship. And that's in the fields of biology, chemistry, engineering, geology, computer science, and physics. As I said, no German is required. You work with a PhD student in a lab, or if it's different kind of internship, some do like field work, for example, and then they do analysis in the lab. So really, depending on the nature of the field and the internship, but they're all research focused. You work on a very specific topic. You get a monthly living allowance. You even get a lump sum for the international travel to cover those costs. You get health insurance. And then there might also be some housing assistance depending on where your internship is and if it's a little bit more expensive. In addition to that, so you get the research experience, you get the international experience, but in addition to that, we also offer a 3-day meeting. It's usually actually in Heidelberg, um, with all the other RISE interns, and that's how students also meet other interns. Oftentimes they travel together, they explore Germany together. So this is really a great program. Also, if you might think about a master's or PhD and just want to get that extra practical experience. And then there's also possibility for an intensive language course ahead of time. The database just opened 2 days ago, so this is perfect timing for you. The deadline is November 30th. You can see the deadline, the website here. Um, in a few slides, I will talk to you a little bit more about the application process. So I get a little bit more into detail because um, I I know that there are a lot of you out there in the STEM fields where this might be an interesting program. But it's a web-based application process. Database just opened. The registration portal you can find here, or you just Google DAAD RISE Germany. You can choose up to 3 options, and everything is filed online. So that's really the basics of this. How do you do this? So you create an account, and I just said as a freshman, right now you're not eligible, but you can already prepare. You can create an account without submitting an application. I just created one myself, just with my personal email, just to also walk through and see and take some screenshots. So create an account, even if you can apply for next summer, have a look at the process, have a look at the internships, because then you can also throughout the year maybe talk to your professors already about your plan, and you can prepare. And then once you are able to apply, you have a strong application because you also, for example, talk to professors about your goals, and you had a general sense of the internships that are available. This year, 504 internships. So we're really talking about quite a number that you can apply for. So this is maybe a little bit time consuming, but I recommend you take some time each day to look at the opportunities. This is a screenshot. You can search for the internship that you're interested in. You can star your favorites. You get the general information here, and then when you click on view, you have a more detailed information of what this actually entails and what your job description would be. As I said, different fields of study. Some have more opportunities. Like as you can see here, engineering is by far the one field with the most opportunities. And maybe I forgot to mention they're all over Germany, all universities. Some offer internships, several in the same lab if there's capacity. Some universities, it's only one internship that's offered. So really go through the database, have a look at all those opportunities. And if you're kind of in between certain fields, have a look at both. And the requirement is not necessarily that you've already had research experience. It's really to show why are you interested in this? Maybe you've learned something before, and this is something that you might want to learn that you maybe can learn here, or you've not had the opportunity, or maybe you're looking other avenues for a master's or your PhD. So there are really a lot of reasons why you would argue you'd be good for this internship, but it certainly doesn't have to be that you already had research experience or even specifically research experience in a very specific topic that they're looking for. And here is again coming back to the young ambassadors and the podcast. Um, get in touch with them, ask them. So, how did you do that? How did you select the program? How did you phrase your application, your motivation letter? And of course, there are a lot of great resources on your own campus that you should take advantage of. So then really it's just going through the online application form, your general information, and then country of university, field of studies, uh, GPA, knowledge of German. You have to say it's helpful outside of the lab, but this is not a criterion for whether or not you're a strong candidate for a certain internship. This is really just for us to know whether or not you do have some German skills. And then you can, again, choose 3 internships, you upload the documents, and then you submit it. Um, Really, a lot of the questions that I usually get, they're answered on the RISE Germany page, or then very specifically their FAQs, which answers questions about the internship itself, but then also very specifically the application. Um, so this is the internship that I think if you're a STEM student is probably the most relevant for you at the moment as an undergraduate student. But I said earlier, and now I see here, there sometimes we share slides, the Canada office and the USA office. So before I send that to you, CC, I will make sure that all of the links lead to the US side. I don't want to confuse anyone. But the funding is the same. So I mentioned that maybe you're looking at grad schools, maybe you're looking for a different experience, maybe also because it's more affordable, because of because there are no tuition fees. And so, in addition to already that structure at a German university, DID also offers a study scholarship of all disciplines, which supports living expenses and health insurance and travel costs for students to pursue a 2-year master's. And it can be any field, it can be any university. So, for example, if you do the RISE internship and it's at a university where they offer master's or PhD program and you really like it there, then that could be a way for you to pursue a master's and then get the living expenses funded. The deadline is coming up, October 31st. I'm looking at my calendar here, so it's 2 weeks, so it's not a whole lot of time. But if you are graduating in May or even this December and you're thinking about this, have a look at it and just apply. You can always apply again. Seniors are eligible to apply for the next academic year, but you're eligible to apply for this up to 6 years after graduation. So um, apply to whatever you're eligible for, and then even if you don't get it, you can always apply again. So you are able to apply a second or third time should you not receive it right away. So this is very detailed. I'm not going to go through all of this, but with the study scholarship, you don't have to have applied to university yet. In fact, that you have to apply for the funding first. So the deadline is October 31st. Um, for that, you really need to only know where you want to go, what kind of program, what university. It's not set in stone. If you decide to go to a different university about the similar program, that's fine too. It's a formality, really. So we usually say plan in advance. But if it's 2 weeks now and you think, oh, this is perfect, this is exactly maybe what I'm looking for, still have a look at it, look at the opportunities, and then just apply. And if you really want to do it, if you really want to get a master's, you can then also apply once you graduate, should you graduate this December or next May. Finding a program, so that's the most important for the study scholarship, is the Higher Education Compass. My guide is a personalized program database and a customized search and save function for you. So that will help you identify degree programs, which is really the important aspect of the study scholarship. And then what I mentioned earlier, the Study in Germany website is also a great resource in identifying programs. All right. So maybe just to confirm, are there graduate students in here? Masters if they pre-launch, yeah, high chance of getting study scholarship. Okay, I need to look at that later. Um, okay. Most of you are undergraduates, it looks like. But since this is recorded and maybe others see this too, I'm just going to go through um, the opportunities for master's and PhD as well. So, should you decide, maybe you do the RISE internship and then you think, oh, I want to actually get my PhD in the United States. There is still opportunities for you to apply for funding, whether or not you got the RISE opportunity or maybe some other grants. For every academic stage, you are eligible to apply if you fulfill other requirements. So it's not a you got DoD funding once and that's it. It really grows with your academic level based on also your abroad plans. So the research grant is for PhD and postdocs, different lengths of funding. And for that, it's really individual opportunities. For example, you do the RISE internship, you stay in touch with the researcher, with the lab, and maybe they are interested in working with you once you're in the United States or maybe in Canada, and you're interested in a very specific research project at this specific institute. For those opportunities, we do have the research grant that you can apply for. If you are in the field of space, aeronautics, energy, and transportation research, and maybe you are interested in some 1 to 9 months as a net master student, maybe you're interested in a PhD, maybe postdoc, maybe faculty. There's a wide range. I encourage you to look at the DLR website. That's basically the German Aerospace Center. So there's quite a bit of funding available. They work internationally. Again, you don't have to know any German. All of the programs that I'm presenting to you today, the language in the lab is English, the language of instruction is English, and there are always plenty of opportunities to learn German, but it's not a requirement. And so, also with all of those opportunities that I'm presenting, maybe master's studies, maybe PhD, those are recognized in the United States, as long as it's not like a degree, for example, where you want to be a lawyer or want to be in a medical field or teaching, for example. All of those credentials and the degree programs are recognized in the United States, and degrees from German universities and German research institutions are highly regarded. And then the RISE Germany program for undergraduates has a sister program for master's and PhD students, which is focused not on like the research level in the lab, but really, as the name suggests, RISE professional, looking at the opportunities for students to work at a leading company in Germany. That one is minimum 10 weeks, but can be up to 6 months. And this one is also open to students who say they're seniors this year and they want to do it as a post-bac, maybe between graduating with a bachelor's to transitioning to a master's program. So that would be RISE Professional. It's also with the database, they get funding. So it's really the same. Students get a little bit more funding because they're more on a higher academic level. And here is also database. So really the process is the same. You have to go on the RISE professional website to get to the right portal. But then when you get to the portal, visually it looks very similar. Just one difference, of course, is that it's for those internship opportunities. And this year it's 120 of those internship opportunities that, again, you can filter by field of study or specialization. And you get all the details, even more so than what you see here on the screen, once you click on view, and it'll have very specific information about the university or in this case, the company and the nature of the internship. Um, I've already sprinkled in some tips for your application. First one is always start early. So if you're a freshman and you're not quite eligible, you're perfectly here in this info session. This is a good time for you to get started. Because for all of the opportunities that we offer, you need to have a recommendation letter. I know, especially in the STEM fields, especially early on, you are probably more in touch with research assistants or teaching assistants. And for the recommendation letter, you want to get on the higher levels. So you want to ask a professor, you want to ask a department chair. And with that, you need to form the connections. So go to office hours, maybe go to events that are organized by the department, because the closer you have a relationship with a professor or dean or a department chair, the better your chances are ultimately to also securing an internship, because in addition to the motivation letter, the recommendation form oftentimes plays a very important and deciding factor in who actually gets the internship or the scholarship. Then show your passion. Every funding is a little bit different, the nature of it, but bottom line is, why are you interested in Germany? Why are you interested in this specific program? And sometimes you might think, well, I'm not studying German, I'm not studying history, for example. That's not necessary. Really, you want to look at, maybe there is a professor you really want to work with. Maybe there's an institute and they focus on certain research in your field that you're really interested in. Maybe this is a research facility and they focus on something very specific that you can do on your own campus. So there are really a lot of reasons that are not necessarily focused on the German language and the German culture. I already talked about the quality reference from a letter of recommendation. I always like to tell the story that when I applied for a grant and I asked for a letter of recommendation, I really just asked, can you write a letter of recommendation? And then the person did it. Really, you have a lot to say and a lot of influence in getting a quality letter of recommendation. Number one is what I just said: go to office hours, talk to your professors, maybe do volunteer work so that they get to know you. And the more they know you, the more personal your reference letter is. And then also share your project, share your passion. Why do you want to do certain things? Because the more specific the letter of recommendation is, also reflecting what you want to do and reflecting of what your motivation letter says, the higher your chances are. If you do work with a TA or research assistant and you think they're really better able to evaluate your skills and your accomplishments, then have them write it, but have a professor, for example, co-sign it. So that is also possible. Um, all of our application deadlines are in the German time zone. So if you do wait for the last minute, the last day, just be aware that it's not midnight US time. California, we're 9 hours behind. So really, if you apply, plan for several days ahead of time. Um, those are a lot of the tips. If you have additional questions, and I assume I have some time now if you have additional questions, but look at all the websites. All of our websites have the funding page with the detailed information, and then also checklists or a detailed FAQ page. So a lot of the questions are answered there, but then if you are in the process of the application and you have a question, please get in touch with us. This is our social media account, newsletter with all the updates. But this is my contact information. If I'm not available, shoot an email or call the New York office. There's always someone there to take your call. If you're in the application process and you just need some clarification. So if there are questions beyond what you already can find on the websites, then please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. We want you to succeed, and we want you to go to Germany and experience being a student or an intern. Um, that's the slides that I have for now. And if you have any questions, I did actually see some questions. I just need to go to the chat box. I think I saw something about transfer credits. Um, so as long as you have on your campus second year status, whether or not you're officially a freshman, that's fine. As long as you have that academic standing of a second year student, which is sophomore. I always have issues with that. Can't remember. So second year. Bioengineering major, read the RISE database of several questions. First, are some internships more appropriate for second years? Not really. So appropriate for second year, third years? No. You can be very competitive as a second year. You can be very competitive as a third year, or maybe even the other way around. So there is not a preference. It's really about how you uh, how you in your motivation letter share that you're a good intern for this internship, that you're a good fit, which means, yes, you talk about your skills, but then also just why are you interested in this? Maybe you read an article in preparation. So just because you've not had a course in something that's in the internship that you're interested in, you can read up on something. You can look into the PhD students that are offering the internships and look at what they do, and then you can reference that, for example. So you are eligible as a second year student, and I wouldn't say there is anything more appropriate than for others, except for when they very specifically say that in their internship offer. But I don't think that they do that. Um, then with the match your major, um, I mean, it's all the STEM, there's a lot of overlap, right? So if you're in engineering, but there's something that's more, I don't know, chemical or physics, then of course that's also totally fine. It's really just a matter of how you phrase it, how you make your case. And for that, go to the study abroad office, go to the career center, go to the writing center, go to the I actually don't know exactly what all the offices are maybe on your campus, but um, any of those offices that would support you, go to them, have them read your application, go to your professor again, go to your professor, have them have a look at it, and then really make your case. And it doesn't have to match 100% what you've already done. I'm going to scroll down. Higher chance of getting study scholarship from if they have previously studied abroad in Germany. Um, if you have experience in Germany, I think that's always a plus because you can show that you're interested and you maybe already know a little bit of German. But then it really is important to say why this program, why this university, why do you want to work with a certain professor? So I think if you have two applications and one has a little bit of experience with Germany, maybe also knows a little bit of German, then certainly that adds a little bit to your application. Um, but it's not a necessity, but it does help, certainly. Motivation letter, ideal length. Um, look at I would have to check, but look at the FAQs. I think for the motivation letter, it's usually 1 to 2 pages. Um, sometimes you can say everything in on one page and you say it all. And if it's concise, that's all you need. And sometimes you do need to explain a little bit. But yeah, there is no limit. Um, but just imagine that there are other applications that they read. So if you think that it's important and it's relevant, you elaborate a little bit more, then certainly have 2 pages, but I wouldn't go a lot more than that. Or then think about it and look at, okay, is all of this information really necessary? And is all of this information really necessary to elaborate as much as you do if you have 3 pages, for example? And here again, the experience of professors of writing centers are really helpful in kind of guiding you in how you write those letters. And as I said, the interviews that I did with the Rise alumni, also with the young ambassadors, get in touch with them, ask them, maybe even they will share theirs with you so you have an example. We can't do that, but they certainly can. Um, all right, so I'm going through those messages. Undergrad student. All right, I'll share this so I see you bigger and the questions bigger. You have my contact information. You will receive the slide. You'll get the recording. Also, for someone who's listening only to the recording, hi, get in touch with me if you have follow-up questions. I'm happy to um, talk to you. And if you, for example, if you're interested in a master's program and you're a little bit lost, I'm also happy to talk to you about that. If you have questions about that. There are no questions. That means that either I did my presentation well and no questions. Oftentimes, of course, like when there's a lot to digest, there is a lot of information, and then really only the questions come when you apply, and that's fine.
Thank you, honey. I don't see any other questions in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and thank you again for hosting the session with our office at UC Merced. And we will be sending out the recording to all the folks who registered for the session. Thank you again. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording now.